What's going on, bottom line viewers? It's Mitch here to discuss a big time opinion in sports. Who is the greatest football player of all time? And I'm bringing this up due to the fact that Tom Brady has now won his 5th Super Bowl along with his 4th Super Bowl MVP. Both records for quarterbacks and both records for players. He is now tied with Charles Haley, who won 5 Super Bowls, but he's the only guy to win 4 Super Bowl MVPs. Tom Brady just had one of the most magnificent performances in sports history on the biggest stage in the biggest moment of his career, and I'm going to discuss whether or not he is the greatest football player that has ever stepped onto a football field. So, in order to discuss this, it's very much a matter of opinion, and that's why I want to know what you guys think of this. But I think this is how I've always thought. The quarterback is the most important position in football. It's the position where that guy touches the ball on offense every single time, every single play, and I know that football is the biggest team sport that there could possibly be, with 11 guys on both sides of the field, both sides, offense, defense, you have special teams, you have 3 parts, then you have the coaching aspect to it, you have a number of reserves that play. So there's a lot of different aspects that come into football, the strategic part of football, and that's why so many people love it. It's the ultimate team sport. But in order to judge one player, it's very difficult. For me, I usually like to kind of talk about the winning. I like to talk about the statistics. But I think the biggest things is how they performed with various, different things around them. Whether it was players that were around them, whether it was coaching situation, physical ability, performances in the clutch situations. How do they perform when the bright lights are on? And I think a number of these things come into determining who the greatest football player is. But back to what I was saying about the quarterback position. The quarterback position is the position that I believe is the most important position in pro football and maybe even in pro sports. We always say this: the NFL is a quarterback-driven league. It's not a running back-driven league. It's not a receiver-driven league. It's not a linebacker-driven league. It's a quarterback-driven league. And it's not even a coach-driven league. While some people could argue it may be a coach-driven league, like Bill Belichick always says, the players have to play, and I just the one that coaches them. At the end of the day, the players are the ones that have to play. So for me, the quarterback is the most important position. So if the quarterback is the most important position in pro football, that ultimately means that the best player in pro football should almost always be a quarterback. No? Because it is the most valuable position. That is also why the quarterback wins the most MVP awards, because they are most responsible to team success, basically. They're most responsible for why a team wins. They're most responsible for how the team performs. And they're definitely most responsible from a player standpoint why they win Super Bowls and why they don't. So from that standpoint of things, I look at great players, and there's been great players at many positions. But for me, the greatest player in pro football has to be the greatest quarterback that has ever played. And for me, I know I'm a Patriots fan, and I wasn't able to see the length of Joe Montana and Dan Marino's and even I saw most quarterbacks. But, even a Johnny Unitas to a certain respect. Those quarterbacks, I wasn't alive and in the moment, but I have gone back, I have watched all of their stuff, I have really researched their entire careers, and no quarterback, I think it's end of discussion, compares to Tom Brady's career. Tom Brady is the greatest quarterback of all time. He is a 5-time Super Bowl champion, a 4-time Super Bowl MVP, 12-time Pro Bowler, 2-time first-team All-Pro, 2-time second-team All-Pro, 2-time MVP, 2-time Offensive Player of the Year, Comeback Player of the Year, 2-time NFL passing leader, 4-time touchdown leader, all-decade team in the 2000s. Has all the Super Bowl records, all the playoff records, and some of the most clutch performances we've ever seen, capped off by this one against the Atlanta Falcons. You think about Tom Brady's performances in the fourth quarter of the last 2 Super Bowls that they have won. Not only does he have the biggest comeback in Super Bowl history, but he also has the second biggest comeback against the Seattle Seahawks not very long ago, 2 years ago. And in the Super Bowls, in the fourth quarter, Tom Brady's been 29 for 36 for 320 yards. That's 8.9 yards per attempt and 3 touchdowns with 0 interceptions in the last 2 Super Bowls. He has led the team back in both occasions, and every single one of Tom Brady's wins in the Super Bowl, except for the Philadelphia Eagles win, I believe was a comeback. It wasn't a comeback in the Rams game technically because the Rams tied the game, but he had to make that game-winning drive to set up Adam Vinatieri. They came back against Carolina and ended up winning that game. They came back against the Seattle Seahawks and won that game, and they definitely came back against the Atlanta Falcons to win that game. And then you think about the games that he actually lost in the Super Bowl and the New England Patriots have lost, and it's games where Brady has put the team in position to win the game. He throws a touchdown to Randy Moss with about 2 minutes left, and the defense doesn't make a play to get them off the field. Again, he goes ahead, throws a touchdown, I believe, to the man that should not be mentioned, Aaron Hernandez, for the go-ahead score. Eli Manning comes down and scores. Now, he did have the ball at the end of both of those games, but it was very unrealistic for him to win because they both needed Hail Marys in order to do so. So in a way, even when the Patriots did lose those Super Bowls, it wasn't due to what Tom Brady did at the end of those games. He never choked in a Super Bowl. I think that is kind of something that people take out of context. But in every other one, he has been the guy to go down in 5 different occasions. 4 of them have been comeback victories. 4 of them have been mostly due to Tom Brady, and all of them have been due to Tom Brady's performances. You could say that the Rams one was built off defense. Those early teams were built off defense, but every great quarterback has been surrounded by a great team because it is pro football, and in order to be considered a great quarterback, you can't do it without some players around you. It's just a proven fact. You can't be a 5 Super Bowl champion without a great team, without a great coach, without a great situation and a great organization, which the Patriots do have. I believe the Patriots are the greatest dynasty of all time in the NFL, at least. I think that they're the greatest team in dynasty in terms of the last 16, 17 years. Bill Belichick, I believe, is probably the greatest coach of all time. And Tom Brady, to me, is definitely the greatest quarterback. No quarterback compares. Tom Brady has the numbers of a Peyton Manning, and he has the wins above everybody else. I mean, he has the numbers of Brett Favre, Peyton Manning, Dan Marino, Drew Brees. He's more wins and more team accomplishments than anybody in pro football, even more than Joe Montana. He has been to the big game now 7 times, and it's just like, when is it enough? And now he's just making it like insurmountable for another quarterback ever to be better than Tom Brady. Imagine if he went on to win another one. I'm not going to say he will or does, but it's getting insurmountable for another quarterback. And to me, Tom Brady is the greatest quarterback of all time. And it almost goes without saying now. I think like 99% of people will say now that Tom Brady is the greatest quarterback of all time. I think there should be no doubt. If you are in that 1%, you're probably a hater of Tom Brady. Let's be honest with yourself. Every debate that is logical, you cannot go against number 12 for the New England Patriots. It makes no sense. There are a few arguments out there. Joe Montana won 4 Super Bowls without losing one. Makes no sense because as an athlete, you want to get as far as you can in the playoffs as humanly possible. So if you lose in the Super Bowl instead of the wild card, that means you had a better season, believe it or not. Tom Brady has more division titles, more conference championship appearances, better statistics than mostly everybody, a great passer rating, and he's done it without a lot of Hall of Fame talent. I know you can speak to Randy Moss and Rob Gronkowski. Maybe you speak to system quarterback, which is absolutely ridiculous because every quarterback has a system, including Peyton Manning, who brought his own Colt system to Denver, and they let Peyton Manning basically run the offense in Denver. Tom Brady has had an offense his whole career that he has been responsible for creating, along with Josh McDaniels, along with Bill Belichick, and along with Charlie Weiss. He has been responsible for creating that offense. So, all the possible arguments against Tom Brady have totally been debunked. You just look at what he did against Atlanta last night with 466 yards, the greatest comeback in NFL history. It goes without saying Tom Brady is the greatest quarterback of all time. 5 Super Bowls, 4 Super Bowl MVPs, 2 individual MVP awards, numerous records, great teams, and just an unforgettable career. And you have to remember that this guy was a 6th round pick. I mean, that's just if you want to look at a person who is just never give up, it's definitely Tom Brady. So, but now let's compare him to some of the players that don't belong at his position. So we have Lawrence Taylor, who is, in my opinion, the greatest defensive player that has ever played. You could argue Lawrence Taylor maybe before Tom Brady came around because he was the guy to create the defensive playmaker in a way. He was the first guy that could control and take over a game on the defensive side of the ball. Not that there were guys before him that were very good, but in terms of Lawrence Taylor, he was an MVP on the defensive side of the ball. He was that guy that could totally take over a game and just destroy an offense. On the offensive side of the ball, of course, you have running backs like Jim Brown, who dominated the NFL even before the NFL really existed. I think he's like a 6-time rushing yards leader, numerous MVP awards. Jim Brown will definitely be in the debate. But again, it's a quarterback league. And Jim Brown, again, played against competition that wasn't nearly as great as Tom Brady. Tom Brady, the other thing you have to take into account is that he's played in the salary cap era where nobody is meant to win 5 Super Bowls. No team, no player, no organization is meant to win 5 Super Bowls in this short amount of time with this salary cap league where it's meant to be everybody is meant to be the same. It's not meant to happen that way. The Patriots aren't supposed to go 14-2 every year. They're not supposed to go to the AFC Championship every year, and yet they do. And for some reason, when we see that the Patriots do this, people take away their greatness because they do this at such an alarming rate and such a regularity that it's expected. For people, it's expected for the Patriots to get to the Super Bowl. It's expected to get them the AFC Championship. When you look across the league, how consistent have other teams been? I mean, it was amazing what Peyton Manning did. All credit to him to be so consistent in the playoffs with whatever team he was on. But, you know, it's who else? I mean, even the Steelers have not been great every once in a while. The Ravens have not been that great every once in a while. There have been teams that have been good. Denver's been good for the most part, but they didn't make the playoffs this year. I mean, there's a lot of organizations that have been up and down. Look at the Cowboys. They've struggled for a while with being the most popular team in the sport and being such a recognized team in pro sport and still struggling to get to that next level for a long time, since I've been alive, basically. So, like I'm saying about Tom Brady, he's not meant to do these things, yet he's doing them. When Jim Brown was playing, he was meant to do those things because the team stayed the same, the organization stayed the same, he had the same quarterback, the same lineman, the same coach. He was playing against players on the defensive side of the ball that were basically smaller than him. In terms of linebackers, he was bigger than them. He was running them over because he was so much physically imposing and more physically dominating than they were. And nothing taken away from Jim Brown from what he did in his era. But when we're talking about Tom Brady, it can't compare to me. Especially back to that original argument where the quarterback is more important. And then we go to the wide receiver position with Jerry Rice. And Jerry Rice, in my opinion, is the greatest receiver of all time. Definitely one of the most clutch players as well. A lot of people don't recognize how clutch Jerry Rice was in his career. I think there are other very talented wide receivers that sort of give him a fight like a Randy Moss. But Jerry Rice, in terms of a career resume, is the best receiver of all time. And people have considered him the greatest player. I think that's just incorrect because when you look at I never considered Jerry Rice better than Joe Montana because at the end of the day, Joe Montana and Steve Young had to pass Jerry Rice the ball. If they're not passing him the ball, he doesn't get all the statistics. He's a great player, but you know it's hard to compare. And a receiver, I always felt wasn't crucial to win. A quarterback is crucial to win. A wide receiver is not crucial to win a Super Bowl. Look at the Patriots. I mean, they've rarely had a great receiver. Julian Edelman, very good receiver. But other than that, like they won with the Deion Branches, the Troy Browns, the David Gibbons of the world, and even when they had Randy Moss and to another extent Wes Welker, they didn't win the Super Bowl because wide receivers aren't critical to winning a Super Bowl. Quarterback is. Defense, you have a good enough defense. And you look at the playoffs this year, and this certainly can back up my point. Look at the final 4 quarterbacks that were in the playoffs this year. Especially right now in the NFL, the quarterback has never been more important. Tom Brady versus Ben Roethlisberger. Matt Ryan, the MVP, versus Aaron Rodgers. 4 of the best quarterbacks in the NFL made it to the conference championship game. That's the way the NFL is played nowadays. And to sit there and say a wide receiver is the greatest player of all time, I just can't agree with you from that standpoint of things. So I can't really say that anybody else, maybe a Reggie White would be in the conversation. Other than that, guys, it's a quarterback-driven NFL. And at the end of the day, for me, the greatest football player that has ever played is Tom Brady because he's the greatest quarterback of all time. And I don't think it's very close. He's accomplished the most, both in team accomplishments and individual accomplishments. He is right there next to the all-time greats. And his all-time clutch ability is right up there with Michael Jordan. It's right up there with the greatest clutch players of all time. Just look back at his 2 Super Bowls for examples. So for me, at the end of the day, Tom Brady is the greatest player of all time. Bill Belichick's the greatest coach of all time. And the Patriots dynasty deserves to be looked at now, in the moment, as the greatest dynasty of all time. But all credit to the Patriots for winning the Super Bowl this year. That was a fantastic game. Atlanta Falcons fans, I feel sorry for you guys, but as a Patriots fan myself, I loved the game, and it was a hell of a game. It's arguably the greatest Super Bowl of all time. And to me, this caps off the discussion, which I believed since 2008, that Tom Brady is the greatest quarterback of all time, and he could be the greatest player of all time. I've really believed that since 2008. People were laughing at me then, but now I'm the one laughing. Tom Brady is the greatest player of all time. Thanks, guys, for watching. It's Mitch of the Bottom Line View. If you enjoyed this video, hit that like button. Subscribe to the channel for more NFL videos just like this one. And I'll really be getting into that off season with numerous teams, not just the Patriots, not just the greatest team ever, but the other teams around the league in the AFC and the NFC. I'll try and cover all the free agency stuff, all the draft stuff. Everything, cover that for you guys. So definitely subscribe to the channel if you enjoy what you see here. It's Mitch of the Bottom Line View. Thanks, guys, for tuning in. We appreciate you. Peace out.